The signal disappeared. That was the unusual element. The fact that transponder, which was chirping back every time it was hit by the radar beam from air traffic control, went silent.
There's a million different theories that people could tell you, but one of them is right. That is basically where the mystery begins. It vanishes from radar.
Over the years, there have been countless stories of flights disappearing, leaving families in the dark and experts scratching their heads, from mysterious hijackings to a flight that vanished for 35 years, only to return with an unimaginable surprise. Buckle up, because this is going to be a wild ride.
My next memory after the crash is starting to wake up, slowly coming back from that coma, and I realized that there were faces close to me.
Sometimes life throws you into situations that test the very core of your soul, like the story of Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571. In 1972, a plane carrying a rugby team crashed deep into the freezing Andes Mountains. With freezing temperatures, barely any oxygen, and almost no food. The survivors were left with no choice but an impossible decision: cannibalism. Yeah, they had to eat the bodies of those who didn't make it, just to keep going. It wasn't about choice. It was about staying alive. For 72 long days, they battled the cold and hunger, hoping against hope for rescue. And finally, it came. Those who made it out weren't just survivors, they were warriors, proving that when life pushes you to the brink, you fight back with everything you've got. Life, after all, isn't about what you lose, but how you hold on to what's left. Frozen fate.
I'm sure for the last few seconds, those soldiers knew that there was a serious problem.
On December 12, 1985, Aero Air Flight 1285 was on its final journey. It was a military charter, packed with U.S. servicemen. It had left Cairo, Egypt, made a stop in Cologne, Germany, and was now headed to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. But during takeoff from Gander, Newfoundland, something went horribly wrong. Just moments after lifting off, the DC-8 came down near the airport and took all 256 passengers on board along with it. Authorities were baffled, as no known reason was there. Some were even suspicious of the Soviets, but later the investigation pointed to ice on the wings, which likely affected the plane's lift. It was a grim reminder that winter aviation carries unseen risks. The crash led to major discussions on de-icing safety measures and procedures for military flights. Though the sky was calm, this tragic event left a permanent mark on aviation history. Malaysian Airlines.
The signal disappeared. That was the unusual element. The fact that transponder, which was chirping back every time it was hit by the radar beam from air traffic control, went silent.
A trip that never reached its destination, and people that were never found. On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 took off from Kuala Lumpur, destined for Beijing. But what should have been a routine flight turned into one of the greatest aviation mysteries of our time. Shortly after entering Vietnamese airspace, the plane's transponder was turned off, and the flight veered off course. With 227 passengers and 14 crew members aboard, the Boeing 777 simply disappeared from the radar. Search teams scoured the Indian Ocean for weeks, but only scattered debris washed ashore, which offered few answers. Theories range from mechanical failures to hijacking, but nothing conclusive has emerged. Some believe the pilot may have intentionally altered the flight's path, while others suspect foul play. Despite the vast resources dedicated to the search, the plane's fuselage and black box have never been found.
It's the greatest aviation mystery of all time.
Flight 447.
Too many people fly every single day. The rumors, of course, were it was a bomb, it was terrorism.
On June 1, 2009, the skies witnessed a tragic event when Air France Flight 447 disappeared over the Atlantic. This Airbus A330-203, bound from Rio de Janeiro to Paris with 228 passengers on board, encountered a fierce storm and darkness that night. As the storm raged, the plane's systems started going haywire, which flooded the cockpit with error messages. The pilots fought to regain control, but then silence. Flight 447 vanished from radar and sank into the deep ocean, leaving behind a sea of questions. After an intense search, wreckage was found floating in the Atlantic, but the full story of what happened remains still unknown. The memory of the loss still hurts, as the mystery of Flight 447 is a scary reminder of the unexpected dangers in the sky. Rushed tragedy. On May 5, 2007, Kenya Airways Flight 507 took off from Douala, Cameroon, in the middle of a stormy weather that had grounded most flights. But the captain, 52-year-old Francis Mayo, chose not to wait. Without clearance, he launched the plane into the turbulent night sky. Things quickly went wrong. The autopilot didn't engage, but neither Mayo nor his co-pilot noticed. As the plane started to bank dangerously to the right, they struggled to regain control. Disoriented and battling the storm, the pilots couldn't correct the error in time. So the worst happened. Flight 507 plummeted into a mangrove swamp and neutralized all on board. The crash was later attributed to pilot error, spatial disorientation, and the fatal decision to rush into dangerous conditions. TAM Airlines. On July 17, 2007, TAM Airlines Flight 3054 touched down in Sao Paulo Congonhas Airport, but what should have been a routine landing turned into a nightmare. The Airbus A320 with 187 on board overshot the runway and plowed through a busy street and crashed into a gas station and a TAM warehouse. All on board, along with 12 people on the ground, tragically lost their lives. The investigation pointed to a perfect storm of issues, like slick runway conditions, problems with the plane's thrust reversers, and a runway that was far too short for such a rainy day. The crash led to massive discussions about airport safety and forced authorities to re-examine infrastructure at one of Brazil's busiest airports. After this incident, one thing was clear: sometimes the smallest missteps can lead to the biggest nightmares. Skystall.
The flight is around 38,000 feet. Then,
on December 28, 2014, AirAsia flight QZ8501 took off from Surabaya, Indonesia, heading to Singapore. But in the unpredictable intertropical convergence zone, the weather turned violent. The plane, carrying 155 passengers and 7 crew members, climbed rapidly from 32,000 feet to 38,000 feet, far faster than normal. That steep ascent and resulted in losing lift and plunging toward the sea. Investigators suspected that hissing on critical instruments, much like the Air France 447 tragedy, played a role. Temperatures at such altitudes dropped to a chilling 112 degrees, possibly disrupting key systems. Though the plane hit the water intact, it was too late for those on board. The crash ignited conversations around the importance of pilot training, manual flying skills, and advancements in technology for detecting clear air turbulence. Lost mystery. On March 24, 1968, Aer Lingus Flight 712 took off from Cork, Ireland, on what should have been a routine flight to London. But over the Irish Sea, the Vickers Viscount disappeared from radar and went into the cold waters below, claiming all 61 people on board. What caused the plane to fall from the sky? That's a question investigators struggled to answer for years. The wreckage was recovered, but the mystery remained. Some pointed to possible structural failures, while others suspected something more elusive. Despite numerous theories, no definitive explanation has ever been found. The secrets of Flight 712 rest at the bottom of the sea, and I guess we'll never know for sure. Ghost blimp. On August 16, 1942, the U.S. Navy blimp L-8 took off from Treasure Island on a routine patrol and was ready to hunt for Japanese submarines. Piloted by the skilled Lieutenant Ernest Cody and his co-pilot, Charles Adams, everything seemed normal. However, an hour into the flight, they reported an oil slick, and then silence. Witnesses saw L-8 drifting dangerously low, sagging in the middle, and eventually crashing onto a beach in San Francisco. Despite a frantic search, no sign of the crew was found. Their life jackets were missing, but everything else was in order. Theories about their fate ranged from mishaps to even alien abduction, but none had solid proof. The Navy declared Cody and Adams gone a year later, but their mysterious disappearance remains unsolved. Varig Flight 967. Even the most well-mapped journeys can end in the unknown, and the fate of Flight 967 is proof of that. In 1979, Varig Flight 967, a Boeing 707 bound for Rio de Janeiro from Tokyo, disappeared into the vast Pacific Ocean without a trace. What began as a routine cargo flight turned into one of aviation's unsolved mysteries. Despite an intense search, no wreckage, no distress signals, nothing was ever found. People had all sorts of ideas about what happened. Maybe something went wrong with the plane, or the pilots got lost, or someone did something on purpose. But the deep ocean kept everything hidden, and we still don't know what really happened to Flight 967. It's like one of those mysteries that just got lost in the endless blue of the ocean. Silent flames. In 1998, Swissair Flight 111 took off from New York, bound for Geneva. On board were 229 passengers, unaware of the impending fate. As the MD-11 soared over the Atlantic, a strange smoke began filling the cabin, which set off alarms. The crew quickly declared an emergency and began a rapid descent, hoping to make a safe landing. But fate had other plans. Before they could reach the runway, the plane tragically plunged into the icy waters off the coast of Nova Scotia and claimed all on board. Theories went like crazy. What could be the possible explanation for the mysterious smoke? Investigators later found that a hidden electrical fire, likely caused by faulty wiring which had spread uncontrollably. This event sparked more controversies about something sinister behind it. Whatever the case was, this led to major changes in aviation safety, especially around fire prevention. It was a haunting reminder of how quickly things can go wrong in the skies. Triangle Curse. The Bermuda Triangle doesn't play by the rules, and this case just proved that. Back in 1945, 5 U.S. Navy planes, part of Flight 19, took off from Fort Lauderdale for a routine mission. What followed was anything but routine. The squadron, led by Lieutenant Charles Taylor, reported compass malfunctions, fuel running low, and a growing sense of disorientation. The last words anyone heard were fragmented and anxious transmissions. Then just silence. Search teams combed the area, but no trace of the planes or their 15 crew members was ever found. Some said supernatural forces pulled them into the unknown. Others blamed navigational glitches. Whatever the reason was, Flight 19 vanished into thin air and added to the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle. Sometimes it's not just a plane that disappears, but a whole bunch of answers too. Ghost plane.
Board, including the crew, fell into a deep unconsciousness.
Helios Flight 522 will forever be remembered as a chilling aviation mystery. On August 14, 2005, this Boeing 737 departed from Larnaca, Cyprus, and was bound for Prague. Just minutes into the flight, a warning signal started in the cockpit. Unfortunately, the crew mistook it for a routine takeoff alert and pressed on. As the plane climbed, the cabin lost oxygen, and hypoxia gripped everyone on board. In what can only be described as a ghostly flight, the plane continued flying on autopilot while passengers and crew were unconscious. Greek fighter jets were sent to intercept, and they found a terrifying scene. The pilot was missing, the co-pilot was slumped over, and the plane was eerily silent. One brave steward, wearing an oxygen mask, tried to regain control, but the fuel had run out. In the act of heroism, he steered the plane away from populated areas, but the flight tragically ended when it crashed into the mountains. EgyptAir 990. On October 31st, 1999, EgyptAir Flight 990 took off from New York for Cairo. Just 30 minutes after reaching cruising altitude, the Boeing 767 began an inexplicable descent from 10,000 meters. No distress signal, no mayday call, just a rapid, terrifying fall. The plane plunged toward the Atlantic, reaching near the speed of sound before briefly stabilizing, only to vanish from radar shortly after. It disappeared from the radar, taking 217 people with it. Theories swirled. Some suggested mechanical failure, but others believed something darker was at play. Some people wondered if this was a deliberate act of payback. Egyptian authorities blamed mechanical issues, but many doubted it, suspecting a more sinister reason for the crash. Missing flight. In the summer of 1950, Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 2501 took off on what was supposed to be a routine trip across Lake Michigan. But as the DC-4 cruised over the lake, bad weather turned the flight into a mystery. The pilot requested a descent to dodge the storm, and that was the last anyone heard from the plane. It lost its tracks and disappeared from the radar. Despite a massive search, no wreckage was ever found. The absence of debris led to wild theories. Was it just a tragic accident, something supernatural, or even a deliberate act? Flight 2501's disappearance has become a ghost story of aviation, with whispers of what happened still haunting Lake Michigan's waters. The dust, gone. In 1947, the skies over the Andes were about to get a whole lot more mysterious. The BSAA Avro Lancastrian Stardust was on a routine flight when it vanished into thin air. As the plane flew over the South American peaks, it sent out a series of cryptic Morse code messages that hinted it was about to land. The airport authorities made the necessary arrangements for the landing. But then, nothing. No arrival, no wreckage, just silence. The Andes, with its jagged peaks and hidden valleys, swallowed the aircraft and its crew without a trace. For years, people have been trying to figure out what happened to the Stardust, making it one of aviation's most creepy mysteries. Its fate is still unknown, buried somewhere in the Andes, like a ghost story in the mountains. It's funny how the highest places can keep the darkest secrets. Flight 007. In 1983, during the height of Cold War tensions, Korean Air Flight 007 took off from New York City and headed for Seoul. It was a regular flight, but fate had other plans. As the plane flew over the Sea of Japan, it strayed into restricted Soviet airspace. The Soviets were on high alert and paranoid due to the Cold War and misidentified the commercial jet as a military threat. Soviet interceptors fired a missile and neutralized Flight 007. To this day, the incident is a painful reminder that even the most innocent of flights can fall victim to suspicion in times of political tension. Mediterranean mystery. In the early hours of May 19, 2016, EgyptAir Flight MS-804 vanished from the radar and left the world in shock. The Airbus A320 was flying from Paris to Cairo when it disappeared just 20 minutes before it was set to land, with 66 on board. As it crossed into Egyptian airspace over the Mediterranean, the flight's signal was lost without any distress call. A ship captain claimed to have seen a mysterious flame in the sky near the last known location of the plane. Search teams quickly mobilized, scouring the deepest parts of the Mediterranean for any signs of wreckage. Meanwhile, anxious families gathered at Cairo International Airport, desperately hoping for news of their loved ones. Though wreckage was later found, the exact cause remains one of modern aviation's most haunting mysteries. Mystery Flight. The skies hold secrets, but none as strange as Pan Am Flight 914. In 1955, this plane took off from New York. It was bound for Miami, and you know what? It simply vanished from the radar. Air traffic controllers were stumped as it had just blinked out of existence. And then 3 decades later, out of nowhere, it reappeared. But here's the kicker. No one on board had remembered anything. They hadn't aged a day, and it was as if no time had passed at all. People talked about time warps, some even whispered about alien abductions, but no one truly knows what happened. Was it a glitch in the fabric of reality, or something beyond our understanding? To this day, the vanishing act of Flight 914 remains one of aviation's most bizarre mysteries. Lost. Nuke. In 1966, a U.S. Air Force B-47 bomber was flying over Spain when it dropped something it wasn't supposed to. A nuclear bomb. Yeah, a whole fully functional bomb just vanished into thin air. What started as a routine mission quickly turned into a frantic search, but the bomb's location was never fully confirmed. People wondered if it was hiding in the depths of the sea or buried under Spanish soil. This Cold War incident reminds us how one small mistake could have devastating consequences. It's crazy to think that somewhere in Spain, a bomb that could change the world might still be lying around. Tiger vanished. In 1948, the Avro Tudor 4-star, Tiger, a British South American Airways beauty, set out from Santa Maria to Bermuda with 31 passengers and 6 crew. But over the Atlantic, the plane vanished without a trace. The strange thing is, there were no distress signals, no wreckage, just an eerie silence. Was it the Bermuda Triangle at work, or something even stranger? The plane's disappearance sparked wild theories, from mechanical failure to alien abductions. Despite extensive searches, no sign of the Star Tiger ever turned up. It's like the sky itself swallowed the aircraft whole. To this day, no trace of the aircraft has been found. It's a chilling reminder that sometimes the sky itself becomes a place where answers disappear just as fast as the planes. Lost Skymaster. In 1945, a C-54 Skymaster took off into the clear skies, but its story ended in the mysterious depths of the Atlantic. Known for its reliability, this aircraft, operated by the Flying Tiger Line, was expected to complete its journey without a hitch. But somewhere along the route, the Skymaster disappeared. No distress calls, no wreckage, just silence. After the incident, authorities started investigations, but the search efforts came up empty, leaving behind only speculation. Was it weather, mechanical failure, or something more mysterious? No one knows what happened to NC-1002. It's a mystery that reminds us that even the strongest planes can disappear without a trace. Illimani's Secret. In 1985, Eastern Airlines Flight 980, a tough Boeing 727, took off heading to La Paz. But things took a mysterious turn as the plane vanished into the icy peaks of Mount Illimani in Bolivia. With no distress signals and the tough terrain made it difficult to search. It was really hard to find the wreckage. The towering peaks of Illimani seemed to just swallow up the plane, leaving behind only whispers of what might have gone wrong. Authorities searched for days for it. Even after decades, the mountain still keeps its secrets, as the final moments of Flight 980 remain a chilling aviation mystery. What do you think? What might happen to the unlucky being? Share your thoughts down below. Amelia Earhart.
Earhart and her twin-engine aircraft never to be found.
In 1937, Amelia Earhart set out to fly around the world, but things took a strange turn. On July 2nd, during the last leg of her trip, she and her navigator, Fred Noonan, vanished over the Pacific Ocean. No one ever found their plane, the Lockheed Electra, despite a massive search. Some people think they ran out of fuel, while others believe they might have landed on a distant island. To this day, No one knows what really happened. Amelia Earhart, known for her brave spirit and breaking barriers for women, became one of the biggest mysteries in aviation history. Her story is a reminder that even the bravest explorers can vanish into the unknown, leaving behind unanswered questions. Lost flight. In 1962, Flying Tiger Line. Flight 739 set off from Guam to the Philippines. T was carrying 107 people. But this routine trip quickly turned into one of aviation's biggest mysteries. Somewhere over the Western Pacific, the Lockheed Super Constellation vanished without a trace. No distress signal, no wreckage, just silence. Despite a massive search, the ocean refused to reveal its secrets. The search operation was abandoned after a few years of failure. It sparked tons of theories. Was it bad weather? Sabotage? Theories continue to swirl, but no one knows for sure. The families of those aboard still seek answers. But the fate of Flight 739 remains an unsolved puzzle in aviation history. Pan Am. In 1957, Pan Am Flight 7, a Boeing 377 Stratocruiser, took off from San Francisco on what seemed like a routine trip to Honolulu. But somewhere over the vast Pacific, something went terribly wrong. The plane was carrying 44 passengers and just simply vanished. Radios went silent, radar signals disappeared, and Pan Am Flight 7 was lost without a trace. Despite extensive search efforts, the wreckage remained hidden, which left investigators puzzled. The fate of the flight was never truly discovered, with only small debris and parts washed up weeks later. No one knew what caused the crash. Was it mechanical failure, sabotage, or something more mysterious? These were the haunting questions that still haunt aviation history. And to this day, there are just speculations about what might have happened that day. Now it's time for today's open discussion.
Santiago Flight 513 vanished from the radar.
On September 4th, 1954, this commercial flight took off from Aachen, Germany, packed with 92 passengers and crew. Suddenly, it vanished from radar. No distress signals, no signs of trouble. Experts were baffled. Was it bad weather, technical issues, or something wilder? Theories swirled, from turbulence to extraterrestrial abductions. Fast forward to 1989, when the flight mysteriously reappeared in Brazil. But here's the twist. Everyone on board was now nothing but skeletal remains, frozen in time. How could this happen? Some said it was a tale of time travel, while others suspected a cover-up. Whatever the truth, Santiago Flight 513 keeps us wondering. Was it a tragic accident, or something we can't understand yet? Thank you very much for watching the video. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to not miss any of the upcoming amazing videos. Thank you once again.